Guess who made it to Miami? The Tampa Bay 55 podcast officially on Radio Row here at the Miami Beach Convention Center. Rob Higgins and Ryan Bass here along with you. The entire week, by the way. Are you tired yet? We just got here yesterday.
You got to pace. I'm ready. Like, it's game day every day, Ryan.
That's the tagline.
Tired. There's no tired. We'll save tired for next Tuesday. We'll
save tired for whenever we go out and have a little bit of fun after all the events are done here in Miami.
Maybe. Still TBD. This is an around-the-clock operation.
I still got to
soaking
convince
it all up.
I still got to convince you. Welcome, guys, to the Tampa Bay 55 podcast, episode 2 here. Ryan Bass, Rob Higgins, again, here with you from Miami. Going to be a lot of fun. We've got a lot coming up this week. A lot of guests that are going to be joining us here on Radio Row. Just to give you guys a perspective, it's kind of quiet today where we are, Rob, but this is going to be a madhouse as we get closer into the weekend here as Super Bowl 54 gets closer and closer by the passing day.
It's the calm before the storm right now. You're starting to see it bubble up. It's gotten a little more activity since yesterday, and it's just going to continue to build till we get towards the weekend.
I'll tell you, I'm impressed with how much of a superstar you are. When you walk through opening night, I mean, people are turning heads and say, that's Rob Higgins?
I mean, we thought Patrick Mahomes had a pretty big following at opening night last night, but then you saw the contingent. I mean, all the different media outlets. That's the only thing that's a little tiring in the process, Ryan. Give me a break. You're patronizing me. It's got to stop.
Get used to it, buddy. We got 55 more weeks of this. It's not going to stop. It was so cool being there at Marlins Park for opening night. Coming up on the pod today, we've got a lot. We're going to have John Lynch, who hopefully will be inducted into the Hall of Fame this weekend before the Super Bowl on Sunday. Talked a lot about his relationship with Derrick Brooks and what it would mean to potentially lead the 49ers to the Super Bowl next year.
What a cool perspective he gave us. I mean, to think he was a part of the Bucs championship, their Super Bowl effort in San Diego, and then now has gone on from an administration side and done what he's done with the 49ers. And then we've got some great comments on number 55, Derrick Brooks, his former teammate, and still how close they are. So great perspective.
And the phone call that he made to Derrick Brooks, you're going to hear that coming up in just a little bit. We'll also hear from a couple of guys that are playing in the Super Bowl on Sunday. Austin Reiter, Byron Pringle, two Chiefs players that both have Tampa ties, Rob.
Great Tampa ties. Austin played at USF. He gave us some great perspective on playing in Raymond James Stadium, and then what he's seen through the player lens so far in Miami, which is pretty cool, and his first impressions of Jeff Scott, which is going to be great. And then Byron Pringle, a local Team Tampa Bay product from Robinson High. He's geared up and excited for this Sunday, and then he even tries to forecast out a little bit towards Super Bowl 55 in Tampa too. So really unique perspective, that's for sure.
Talked a little smack too. He's got that Robinson Jesuit rivalry still boiling in his blood. A couple years removed from high school, he still got it.
He holds this Jesuit thing against me, but it's all good. I'm still wishing him luck this weekend.
I know you are a proud Jesuit Tiger. That's you are. We're also going to have some events perspective and event side. Matt Shapiro, the NFL Vice President of Event Strategy and Integration. He joined us yesterday at opening night. I know you and him have a very, very close relationship because you guys have dealt with each other for many, many years in putting on events in Tampa Bay.
These events are partnerships, and it takes partners to be on both sides of the table, and it just feels like Matt's part of the family, as is their whole team, Peter O'Reilly and Aubrey Walton and everybody from the entire NFL side. It's I say NFL side, it's not a side. I mean, this is one group. You come together to put on one of the world's biggest events. It takes really a unified effort, and we're so excited to have Matt on the show today as well.
Another cool perspective we'll get is Jason Gibson, the Director of Event Services at Amalie Arena. He was walking around Marlins Park last night, kind of awestruck, not just because his 49ers are playing in the Super Bowl and he got to kind of hang out with some of those guys, but also his perspective on what it was like to see logistically what it took to put on opening night at Marlins Park. Going to be a little different when we see it at Amalie Arena next year when the Super Bowl comes to Tampa Bay.
It's a different perspective, but the one thing that's common, and it's the one thing that I think Jason brings to the table as well as the entire Amalie Arena family, is the fans come first. And you'll hear him talk about that as well. That's obviously the lens he was looking at last night, was from the fans' perspective, as well as all the different logistics, the team movements in and out, and how all that was timed. Some really good stuff from him, too.
So we're going to hear from Jason. We'll hear from Matt, Austin, and Byron, and also John Lynch coming up in just a little bit. Again, we are broadcasting from Radio Row at the Convention Center in Miami, just about 25 minutes away from Dolphin Stadium, Hard Rock Stadium, I should say. By the way, I know it is Joe Robbie. I know it is Dolphins. I know it is Landshark Stadium. It's changed a lot.
I think by Sunday
years.
you're going to catch on and get the actual stadium name right.
I should probably get it right.
We'll practice after the show.
So, of course, we're going to talk a lot about coming up, about the game and get into that in just a little bit. But I do want to start here, Rob. The sports world, the entire universe was shook on Sunday with the news that Kobe Bryant, his 13-year-old daughter Gigi, and 7 others passed away from a helicopter crash in California. It's one of those moments that I will never forget, where I was and the people around me, and kind of the wave of sadness and the emotions that overtook all of us. As we were at opening night last night, Kobe's presence could be felt. There was a moment of silence right before things got started at Marlins Park. There were Bryant jerseys all throughout the crowd, some media members also wearing Kobe jerseys in honor of the 41-year-old who passed away. I just want to get your perspective first when you heard it. You have, a young daughter, and I'm sure when you heard that news, it had to grab you by the heart in just imagining what that would be like for you and your family to go through.
Well, I actually got the call from my son. I was headed to the store with my wife and my 14-year-old son, who is a humongous NBA fan, who has spent so many nights in his room with the basketball hoop hung from the door doing turnaround jumpers, and I can hear it upstairs, him yelling Kobe. He calls me and tells me that he had just seen it on social media, and my first hope or thought was, he's been wrong a few times. My son Landon has called me before and said, this guy's getting traded or this guy's happening, and he'd read a rumor that was wrong, and that was my hope and thought immediately. And I pulled over and started searching social media myself and saw that it was right, and we ended up going home to be with the family, and we watched the news coverage of it, and it was one of those things, as you mentioned, like, you'll just never forget where you were. It's one of those like stop in space moments in our lifetime, and you think about what Kobe meant to the world. I would say the biggest thing that has struck me throughout this entire thing, and I feel like it still has been surreal the last 48 hours. It doesn't
seem like it's real, Rob.
It
still hasn't settled in.
But you think about it, he literally was traveling with his daughter to go watch her play and coach, and it's something that is my favorite thing to do on the planet.
With Lainey, your youngest daughter.
With Lainey and with Landon. I love, like, my number one job on this planet is to be a great dad, and to get a chance to go watch them play is my absolute favorite thing to ever do. And I think that's what Kobe was doing when this tragedy happened. And you look back at the pictures of him and his daughter, and you look back at the video of them playing, and just as a dad, it cuts to the core. But I will say, the way that people have celebrated it, it's been, to me, at least from my perspective, the way that it's been celebrated as him as a dad versus him as a basketball player has been really incredible. I mean, that's, to me, probably the way, I didn't know him, but the way that I've seen it in the comments and everybody, everything everybody has shared has been, that's the way he would have wanted to be celebrated, was as a dad. And you look at the way he's been an advocate for women's sports,
women's basketball in particular, as well, with his daughter Gianna.
Having hosted these, women's Final Fours over recent years, his name would come up in conversation constantly with the women's basketball community as a true leader and advocate for their sport. And it's just, a life gone too soon. And I could promise you this. You can sense, though, that the legacy will live on in a really meaningful way.
It's something that LeBron James actually wrote on Instagram last night. He said that he will carry Kobe's legacy with him as he continues on in his career. And I quoted this on the air, a couple nights ago when I did some Kobe coverage on CBS. Bill Plaschke wrote a phenomenal column in the LA Times, one of the famed columnists in the country. And his last line was, and I'm paraphrasing here, but something, and Kobe Bryant's gone too soon, and a little bit of us is gone too. And I certainly feel that way. I'm somebody that had an 8 and a 24 jersey in my closet. I had a Kobe bobblehead that would always sit there right near my bed. I idolized Kobe as a young boy, as what he stood for, that Mamba mentality, that attack every single day with that underdog type of mentality, in knowing that no matter what anyone says about you, you're going to prove them wrong. You're going to work harder than the person next to you. And I feel like he embodied and exemplified that. As far as you, Rob, how do you talk to your kids about something like this? I mean, do you go home and do you hug your family a little bit closer that night? Like, what conversations were had with Lainey and Landon and your wife when you get home after hearing that kind of news and that kind of settling in?
You do. I mean, I think the biggest thing that we continue to talk about is to appreciate every single moment, and that we've got to continue to do everything we can to take advantage of the memories that can be had together, and to honor those things that Kobe stood for. Like, as you referenced, that hard work pays off, and that it doesn't matter your situation, you can always make sure you continue to improve yourself. And I think that's the other thing that Kobe taught everybody, was that, it's never too late to continue to evolve and do things the right way and continue to improve relationships. You look at like the Shaq Kobe, feud per se, and Shaq was one of the first people to honor his legacy right out of the gate and talk about how special their relationship was. So, it's not running from the news of it. It's making sure that there's completely open lines of communication on it. And you're right. I think we have hugged a little more, hugged a little tighter, and I've texted him from here as many times as I possibly can. I texted him when I took off on the plane, and text him when I land, and do all those different things, because family comes first, as you could see with Kobe.
Kobe's really presence was omnipresent last night at opening night. I want to get to a little clip from Richard Sherman, obviously one of the biggest names that's playing in the Super Bowl for the San Francisco 49ers, the Pro Bowl cornerback, the All-Pro cornerback. Here's what he had to say on Kobe Bryant's legacy and the impact he's going to have on him when he suits up Sunday in the Super Bowl.
I was really sad yesterday, and I was sad this morning. I was kind of down. I was in the dumps, and then I just thought about what he would tell me, you know what I mean? He would tell me to stop being a baby and man up and play it and do it in his honor and win this game for him, and that's what we're gonna try to do. I'm gonna go out there and try to play some dominating ball, just like he wanted. The Mamba mentality still lives on.
And I love, Rob, when he ends that saying the Mamba mentality still lives on. Speaking of which, Justin Grandin had an opportunity to interview Trent Dilfer, who obviously played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at quarterback, and played in the 2001 Super Bowl and won a ring in Tampa in 2001 over the New York Giants when he was the quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens. And he compared Kobe to John Lynch, which I thought was really interesting, that comparison, as far as the fierce competitors that they are, that no one works harder. And John Lynch was somebody that we had an opportunity to speak with at opening night. He was obviously bombarded by a lot of people that wanted to chat with him. But when you think of John Lynch, what comes to mind for you, having grown up in Tampa Bay and knowing that he's a Super Bowl champion and wears that Buccaneer jersey still proud?
Well, it wasn't just the on-the-field success. I mean, I'll never forget as a kid watching guys come across the middle and him lighting them up as part of that Tampa 2 defense, and all the success on the field and the Super Bowl championship and all those things. It was what he did off the field. I mean, he had such a great active foundation that gave back to teachers and gave back to the community in a very real way, as did the Derrick Brooks of that era and the Rondé Barbers and the Mike Allstotts and all these guys that have accomplished so much on the field but then off the field as well. And John really epitomized that.
John was not just, a all-star on the field, but as you mentioned, off the field, now leading the San Francisco 49ers to the Super Bowl as an executive, named the Executive of the Year here in 2020. We had an opportunity to speak with him at opening night last night. Here were his thoughts on not only that different role of being able to lead a team as a GM, but also what it would be like to lead the 49ers to the Super Bowl next year in Tampa. So, John, thanks so much for joining us, first of all. Leading a team as a GM and playing in a Super Bowl as a player, is there a difference? Do you still get that same competitive juices flowing?
Oh, sure you do. You just can't go out there and hit someone and do anything of it. So you got to have great faith and confidence in your guys, and I certainly have that. I love our group. I love our coaches, and these guys make me proud, both on and off the field. They're an outstanding group, I think shown that they can win in a multitude of ways. You want to run the ball, we can do that. You want to throw it, we can do that. We can play defense. And so it's a fun group that has proven we can win a bunch of ways. And that gives you a lot of confidence. And got a tremendous opponent in the Chiefs. We all understand that. Got great respect for Andy Reid and the job he does. But we're very confident in what we bring to the table as well.
John, thanks so much for everything you've done for the Tampa Bay community. Your foundation was incredible back home. Another one of your teammates has done a lot in Tampa as well, Derrick Brooks. He's leading our Super Bowl effort next year as co-chair of Super Bowl 55. What's your impressions of DB?
He's one of my best friends in the world. As this opportunity presented itself, you obviously get good seats as a GM, and so my wife and I sat down and said, let's think of a list of the people most important to us in our lives, and that was the first call I made, other than family and all that. So that's what he means to me. Tremendous friend, has been for years. He always has my back. I try to do the same for him, and we've got a bond that can't ever be broken. I'm so proud of him for everything he does on and off the field. Really a hero in Tampa to me, and can't wait to share this Sunday with him.
After you wrap up this Sunday with the Super Bowl win, John, how cool would it be to lead your team to a Tampa Super Bowl in 2021? Wouldn't that be something truly special?
That'd be pretty awesome. I feel my entire family does. The love, though, it's continuing to come from Tampa. I've had a bunch of messages from people up there saying that since the Bucs are out, they've adopted the Niners, and that's awesome. And hope to see a bunch of them. And Tampa will always have a special place in the Lynch family's heart and my heart. And I know they'll do a great job hosting a tremendous Super Bowl next year, and I hope we're part of it.
It was great hearing John talk about 55, Derrick Brooks, our co-chair on the Super Bowl LV host committee. Ryan, we got on the ground yesterday. Some of us drove in, some of us flew in.
Some of us flew in, and some of us spent 4 hours in a car, yes.
I can tell you, I would have preferred to drive. But from our perspective, it's always good to see what happens at the airport, too.
You fly into Miami or Fort Lauderdale?
Flew into Miami. Immediately started taking notes and pictures as soon as we get off the plane. At the airport, we're looking for things like what's the signage, what's the welcome package look like from that standpoint. How are their volunteers deployed? Where are they stationed? How many do they have? Are they discernible where they stand out and you can ask informational questions about them? So I actually got a chance to talk to a few of the volunteers there. I interviewed them just to understand their perspective. What was their training like? How many shifts are they doing? What was their background? What motivated them to volunteer? As we talked about in that first episode, we have 10,000 volunteers that'll be a part of this effort, and they need to make sure we need to make sure they have the best experience possible. We need to make sure their memories of volunteering are incredible and that they feel like they were really a part of the overall effort, because as we talked about, they're the first impression for it. And so to get an opportunity to visit with them, I thought was fantastic.
By the way, volunteers coming into opening night last night at Marlins Park, they were cheering, they were high-fiving. We're just media members. We're here to work and cover the event. But their passion and energy that I felt got me excited to be here. And if that's just a microcosm of what we'll see in Tampa, it's going to be really cool to have those volunteers really bring that energy throughout the week as we get closer to the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay.
No doubt. No doubt. And we're touring the Volunteer Command Center on Friday, but and we'll get a chance to talk to Lisa Urban, who's coordinating this from our team, who's coordinating this entire volunteer effort. She's actually going undercover today as part of the effort and going to be one of their volunteers. So she's going to go through the process and get her uniform
that's
and
going to be a cool
understand
perspective
it from that. We try to do that as much as possible where we become that end user, so we take the things that we like, learn some of the things that maybe we could improve upon, and then build that into the overall game plan. So that's
so will you be sitting in the
happening.
stands on Sunday as a fan just to see what it's like to
We'll see. I'll probably be the guy
grab a
outside the
couple
state, make sure
concessions.
egress is going well as part of it
figured
too.
you would be. I figured you would be.
So that was a big part of it, learning that, and then you hop in a cab, and it's great to talk to cab drivers and Uber drivers and get their perspective as to what's happening. What are they seeing early on in the week, and then as we continue to move upon the week, what are they seeing later on in the week? What are they? What is there been any training with them as part of it? And then you get to the hotel. What's that greeting like at the hotel? What's the signage like at the hotel? So I can promise you, the minute we got on the ground here, we were already starting to look and see what are the things that we can take from this experience. And then transitioning to opening night last night, as you referenced, a little bit of a different setup with a baseball stadium as part of it than what we'll see at Amalie Arena in downtown Tampa next week, but still a lot you can learn from.
Next year you're talking about.
Next year.
It feels like next week.
It does feel like next week. My goodness. But it was such a great opportunity to see how that event set up last night, and got to catch up with a few special guests as part of it as well.
Yeah, we certainly did. Austin Reiter and Byron Pringle, two guys that are playing for the Kansas City Chiefs. Also, Matt Shapiro, the NFL VP of Event Strategy and Integration. Jason Gibson, the Director of Event Services at Amalie Arena. He told us he was giddy looking at the logistics, like genuinely excited and pumped to look at the logistics of opening night. We'll talk to him in just a minute. As far as from your perspective, when you were there at opening night, what did you see? What were you taking in? Obviously, you and I were kind of chasing around trying to get some interviews set up for this podcast, but is there anything that you remember perspective-wise you were saying and seeing that left a lasting impression on you?
I think really just that fan perspective. It was only 4 or 5 years ago that they started including fans as part of the overall experience of opening night. So going through it from that perspective and looking at it, I think was really good. So everything from the entrance and the security, going through and entering the building, and then seeing all the different fan areas they had set up. There was some people that were tuning into interviews. You saw the little device that we talked about.
An earpiece they can plug into their ear.
With Jason, where they were playing the interviews, and you could tune into the player that you wanted to hear from, to then all the way to egress. And you referenced there was volunteers not only cheering on entrance, but then on egress as well. So fans still felt that energy coming out to see their rideshare situation as part of it. Really, the NFL and Amalie Arena will operate the event, and then it's our job to make sure that each of these components plug into the overall vision of the event and how we host it from a local perspective. So we're looking at it from a variety of different ways, but I can tell you it was really good to get a chance to see it last night.
If the 2017 College Football National Championship was any indication, Media Day was held at Amalie Arena. Really well set up. The guys were really accessible as far as players were concerned. Speaking of which, very, very, very cool to see some of those guys walking around on the floor at Marlins Park. Austin Reiter, well, that makes two USF alums we're going to have on this podcast today, and me as a UCF guy, I'm already cringing, but that's okay.
My goal is to infuse as much green and gold in this podcast to get you as uncomfortable as possible. There may or may not be talk of fictitious national championships. There'll be
sure
some
there will be.
barbs along the way. But as much as I can get the USF influence on this thing, guys, the great part of this is literally at one point I snuck off. I was with Ryan most of the night, and at one point I think I acted like I was going to the bathroom, and the reality was I was going to track down Austin to get an interview with him and force it upon Ryan to be included, because I didn't want him to veto it out of the gate. But it was awesome to get a chance to catch up with a former Bull who's played in Raymond James Stadium before, who gave us that perspective of what it was like to land in Miami, some of the things he's already seen being this early in the week. And then, of course, I had to ask him about Jeff Scott as well.
All right, Austin, thanks for joining us, and congratulations on making the Super Bowl. We're so excited to be hosting the Super Bowl next year, but tell us your impression so far this year of Miami.
It's awesome. I mean, look at the atmosphere we have here. This is incredible. So many people. Been nothing but warm welcomes. Everybody at the hotel, from getting off the plane. It's definitely an experience.
So did you have a pretty warm reception for waiting for you at the airport?
Yeah, so we actually got up out of our seats, and then they started pulling the plane in, because normally when we stop, they put the ramps up, everybody hops off, but they actually pulled us into a hangar. We hear a band and music going. We're like, what the heck is going on? And we look out the window, and there's just gates up with rows and rows of people standing there. So that was a little different.
Very cool. Now, what about your impressions of playing at Raymond James Stadium? Obviously, you had a great career at USF. We're so excited to be bringing the Super Bowl back there next year. What was it like playing in Ray J for you?
Oh, special, for sure. That was one of the things I think that drew me to USF when I was coming out of high school, was the ability to play in a professional stadium. And, I've got so many memories there. It's a special place.
And the recent coaching change at USF, we've got Jeff Scott coming in. What have you heard about him? What do you think about him? I know we've been blown away by him. We're so impressed. Can't wait to have him with USF football.
I'm very excited. I was talking to Tom earlier this week, Siebold, and I think that may be the correlation of how Jeff was under Dabo Sweeney, and now how Eric Bieniemy is kind of under Coach Reed. And I think when EB gets that shot at the head coaching gig, then I think it's going to be very successful, and I hope Jeff Scott's very successful at USF as well.
Yeah, I think that's enough USF talk for one podcast. What do you say?
We'll come back tomorrow with the green and gold update, that's for sure.
Really cool to catch up with Austin, and cool to hear his perspective on Jeff Scott. I know you're very excited, and a lot of people in Tampa are excited about the Jeff Scott era as he takes over, coming from Clemson to USF. Byron Pringle is a guy who, Tampa born and bred, Robinson High School. Really cool to talk to him. We got him right after he was salsa dancing in the middle of opening night, because, yeah, they do that.
I'm just glad we didn't have to replicate that.
I was hoping that you would.
I was a little scared that was going to happen, because I'm not sure what was going on. But you're right. We rolled up on him, and he is in a full salsa dance. But at least we got a chance to talk a little bit Tampa Bay with him.
Dude, got to be cool, man. Playing just a few hours from your hometown. You're in the Super Bowl in Miami.
Yes, sir. It's a blessing, man. It's a blessing to be here. Being able to compete at the most high levels, this game can take you, and you've been able to be around a great group of guys that work day in and day out, and great coaches, and it's like a great organization I'm playing for, so it's a blessing.
You have anything to say back to our good friends in Tampa Bay? We're visiting, taking a lot of notes, getting ready for Super Bowl next year. What do you say to the folks back home? You got so many fans, the Robinson High Nation, that are watching you here come Sunday. What do you want to say to them?
I want to let them know we're going to win this game. I'm going to bring that rain back to Tampa. And next year, we playing Tampa. We're going to win that game. Rep by Jesuit.
Oh, that right. You still got that rival on your mind.
Yeah, I still got that rival on my mind. Just to let the Jesuit fans know Robinson's still in the house.
I mean, you'd be playing in the Super Bowl next year right down the street from their high school, too, if you made it back-to-back years.
Yes, sir. It's just a blessing. It's just a blessing being able to be by Robinson, to be by Tampa where I grew up at, and also just being around kids that look up to me, And I just want to let all the kids know that it's a blessing to be in a position, but don't never give up on your dream. Keep pushing forward.
Let me ask you this, because you went undrafted, and now you're on a team that's going to be playing in the Super Bowl on Sunday. What message do you have for those kids that maybe are out there and struggling and potentially thinking about giving up? You didn't, and you've made it to this stage.
Don't never let nobody tell you that you can't do it. That's something you got to have a strong mind, but my number one thing that I go by, I don't believe in excuses. I don't believe in complaints. You should attack every day positive, with a positive mindset. Give it your all. Do things that gonna make you better. Be a better person, better man. Outside of football, studying wise, in school, just don't give up. Don't let nobody tell you can't do it.
Man, we could see him in the Super Bowl next year in Tampa Bay. He's already
Sounds like
talking
he's
about
guaranteeing it back to back. I mean, Byron, get through this Sunday. Don't worry about February 2021 I like it.
I don't think you guys would complain about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs being in the Super Bowl next year.
I think we'd be okay.
They travel very well, those Kansas City fans.
I'd sign up
Yeah,
for
you'd
that.
sign up for that?
I'd sign up for that.
I think Brian Glazer would as well, as we talked to him on the first podcast. A lot goes into obviously putting on these events, Rob. We're sitting in the middle of Radio Row now, and there is obviously logistics that goes into putting all of this together, from Radio Row to the stadium at Hard Rock to opening night and what we saw last night. There's a whole team of people, as we know that you certainly talk about how many people go into putting these events together. As far as the NFL is concerned, Matt Shapiro is somebody who has his fingerprints all over the map as far as events are concerned. He's the VP of Event Strategy and Integration with the NFL. You talk about NFL drafts. You mentioned that they once had a watch party for the kickoff between the Packers and the Bears in Chicago. He helped put on that event. I know you have had a lot of interaction with him. Give me a little insight into who he is and how important he is to putting those events on.
He's an incredible guy, and we are so lucky to have him as a true partner. That events team is phenomenal, and it's so exciting to get a chance to work with them come really next Monday. But I should say, we've been working with them for quite some time. I have no idea how they balance it, because they start working on Super Bowls before they're done with the one before it. As you'll hear Matt talk about, they've already been down to Tampa a few times as part of that, and we're just really fortunate to have such a great partner with Matt. And him and Peter O'Reilly and Aubrey and their entire team is phenomenal. I think we've talked about how it's an 8,000-page bid, and there's a ton of black and white in it. But to have a partner across the table where we can navigate some of those gray areas, like Matt and their entire crew, is phenomenal. And he's not only a great steward of the NFL brand, but I tell you, he's a great person, and we're lucky to have him be a part of this overall effort for Super Bowl 55.
This kind of event, I mean, you're in charge of basically logistically helping put things like this on a large scale and plan it out. How hard is that to do? Just give me an idea, because I don't think when fans are here, they understand the scope and the magnitude of what it's like to put something like this on.
Sure. I mean, I'll start by saying I'm just one part of a pretty broad team, so we have a
Rob likes to say the same thing as well.
Very humble.
I mean, it's true. You said my title, strategy and integration. There's a whole operations arm that's really responsible for how amazing this looks tonight. But yeah, we start working on this. Months is probably even too short. I would say years in advance as we start looking. I know we'll talk more about it, bid processes and what venues might be the right fit. So that takes a long time. We then come to the city multiple times. We're looking at the venues. The plans start to evolve, and then ultimately you see what you do tonight. But that's months or years in the making.
You mentioned coming to the cities. How many times did you have to visit the city? I mean, obviously this city's hosted 13 Super Bowls, so I'm sure you have a little bit of an idea.
Sure.
But how many times do you go visit a city, and how far out?
Yeah, I mean, once you pass the Super Bowl, I mean, if we look at Tampa, for example, we'll have sort of 4 formal trips leading in after this year's Super Bowl. It'll be there April, June, October, December. But even this past year, and I'm sure we'll talk more about it, we were in Tampa in November. So even before this year's Super Bowl, we were there. Adding to that, trips when we're in the bid process, when we're sort of in the final decision process. So there are a number of them, and I would say those are just kind of the big formal ones. There are also vendors and staff that are constantly here on sort of a rolling basis.
A little bit of a non-traditional bid process for us, Matt. You'd awarded 2019 to Atlanta, 2020 to Miami, and 2021 to LA. And then there's the rule that you got to play 2 full seasons with LA, and the construction fell a little bit behind in the stadium. And all of a sudden, the door swung open for us, and obviously we were super excited about that. What was that like going through it with us to revalidate that bid as we started to work together to make sure we could pull everything off without a hitch?
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts with the fact that when Tampa submitted initially, the bid was incredibly strong. So it wasn't really as though Tampa missed the mark in a big way. So I think that gave everyone confidence that when that opportunity presented itself again, we had the right city sort of sitting there waiting. So again, I think it was that mentality of Tampa submitted a terrific bid that, again, to no fault of its own, just didn't hit for 53, 4, or 5. And then once that opportunity popped back open, we were thrilled that we had partners like you guys. And yeah, there was some work to do. It wasn't like we just pulled the bid right off the shelf, but I think we all had the blueprint of knowing what that was going to look like.
What makes Tampa such a easy, such a perfect, whatever adjective you want to throw in there, what makes Tampa the place to host a Super Bowl? I feel like it's so accessible. You see Miami, and obviously that works, but everything that Tampa has to offer, it seems like it just seamlessly fits in with hosting.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably a few things. One, I think the geography and all the build-out along the river and the Riverwalk now is going to be really special. That sort of compact downtown footprint, we're really excited to see that. I think there's been an incredible growth there over the last few years that we've heard Rob and the team talk so much about. We're really excited about how that has changed. And then I think another piece of it are the people. So people like Rob and others, and we're just really excited to work with them. I think people really help make these things really special, and that's what we're excited about.
We got a chance, as you mentioned, to host you guys back in November. We had a lot of your partners there. What were some of the takeaways you had from that tours? We basically spent a couple days going through what we envisioned the initial setup could look like. Yeah. Was there anything that you took away from that?
Yeah, there were a lot. I think one that sticks in my mind is kind of the local partnerships that you guys have. So it felt very sort of integrated between the Lightning and different stadiums and arenas and what's going on at Raymond James. So it felt really like a community that you guys have built. It felt like you guys have done this before, and you'd be able to, not in sort of a rinse and repeat way, but kind of turn it back on to do the Super Bowl again. It feels like you guys know how to do this, and that was very apparent.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite NFL events I've ever visited was Nashville, Tennessee for the NFL Draft this year. How did you pull that off? How did you put a stage on Lower Broadway, one of the craziest places in the world, frankly, and not only pull it off, but pull it off so flawlessly that everybody there raved about that experience?
Yeah, that took a lot of work. I mean, when we talk about local partnerships, so much credit is due to Butch Spurgeon and that team down there and the Titans and everyone who helped to pull that off, because to your point, that's a great event town, but to fully close down Lower Broadway for a few days and convince everyone they're going to come out on the other end smiling is not an easy task. So, yeah, go ahead.
Did you take it in, though? Was there a time where you kind of just oversaw the crowd, the sea of people, the flawless execution? And it seemed flawless. I'm sure from your end there wasn't, but it seemed flawless of how you guys pulled that off.
Yeah, I think there were a couple moments for me. I know on the day leading into the draft on Thursday, there was some rough weather heading in, and we were really monitoring that closely. With an outdoor event, it can be spectacularly great, or with lightning, it could be a little bit complicated. So we were all kind of monitoring that closely. I think when we all found out the weather was going to be okay and it was just going to be some rain, the rain starts pouring down. The commissioner comes out and puts, the team on the clock, gives away tickets for 100 years, and you look back at that crowd and you say, "Holy cow! I can't believe this all came together."
It rains in Tampa sometimes too, but I'm sure you guys.
It's okay. We can handle
it. That's not what we promised in the bid, right?
I think there was a whole sunshine,
sunny,
whole
75
sunshine,
and sunny.
Rise and shine.
I tell you what. You guys every year grow the Super Bowl, but one thing remains the same, and it's the priority you have on the fans. What do the fans mean to you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially with an event like the Super Bowl, we know a lot of people focus on Sunday and the game, but the reality is there's only so many people that can fit in that stadium. So it's really important for us to build events throughout the week that are accessible, that are affordable, that fans can come to. Events like this, opening night, events like over the last few years, what's been Super Bowl Experience and Super Bowl Live, and I know we'll work together with Tampa to make that a special event in that market, and potentially combining those things, putting them outside. The Riverwalk's such a great location. So giving fans that accessibility throughout the whole week in a number of different ways is hugely important.
Man, I love Matt's energy. You can hear how excited he is, not just for this Super Bowl in Miami, but for Super Bowl 55 coming up. I need that kind of energy. I saw there's some espresso shots, I should say, out in the lobby. You in for one? I know you haven't had one yet since you've been here.
You've been talking about shots the entire time.
Coffee shots.
We've been doing this podcast. So, yes, I'll do an espresso shot with you. We'll see about the other stuff as we get a little later on in the week.
By the way, I do love there is a setup for the Tampa Bay host committee that is right outside of these doors in the convention center. So it's pretty cool. Right when you kind of walk in through here in Radio Row, and you'll have a lot of people that are coming through, they already know right away where Super Bowl 55 is going to be, because Tampa's plastered right there outside those doors.
Oh, yeah. I think we may be the first host committee to have two actual setups here. So not only are we on Radio Row sharing the gospel of Tampa Bay 55 each and every day this week, but then to have this promotional setup in the lobby, our two convention and visitors bureaus, Visit Tampa Bay and Visit St. Pete Clearwater, are visiting with media on an ongoing basis. They've got a lounge set up. They're starting to forge those relationships with the media that will be on the ground a year from now. And I think that's one of really those tangible benefits of hosting the Super Bowl, is that marketing visibility that you got. We'll talk later on in the week about some of the time we'll spend working on broadcast set locations.
You're going to give us a good one, right?
You know it.
You'll set us up with a good one.
First and foremost, you guys will have a great one. But to be able to work with these broadcast teams to make sure they're armed with the information about how far we've come since 2009, since we last hosted, and then where we're going as a community, there's a lot of value in the storytelling of that, that's for sure.
I know one guy who is already focusing on Super Bowl 55 and that week leading up to the greatest spectacle in sport is Jason Gibson, the Director of Event Services at Amalie Arena. We had a chance to run into him last night at opening night, and you could see the excitement as he's talking to us. He's kind of peering, looking around just to see the setup. As we talked about on the opening podcast, Amalie Arena will be the site of opening night for Super Bowl 55 when it is in Tampa. And it was interesting listening to him talk about the differences between being in a baseball park, which they had to do because American Airlines Arena, where the Heat play, they were playing the Orlando Magic on Monday night, so that space was already taken up, versus what it will be like playing in a hockey arena and in an arena space at Amalie in Tampa.
There's some differences, but the one thing that's always going to remain the same is that priority on the fans. When we were officially awarded Super Bowl 55, one of the first calls we got was from Mr. Vinnick congratulating us and then also saying, what can I do to help? And we said one of the things you're going to be able to do to help is to help from an opening night standpoint. He's been such a tremendous supporter. You'll see them involved in a variety of ways, including as the host of opening night. So let's hear from Jason on his perspective as we walked opening night last night.
Interesting as we're here on opening night, the perspective that you're seeing, because I see a frenzy here of fans, media, players, but you're looking at this from a totally different perspective.
Totally different. It's all about the logistics and how you set it all up, how we're going to do this next year. So it's really exciting just to see the whole aspect, and just to soak it all up, and not just as a logistics person, but as a fan. Because this is a world-renowned event, and can't wait to have it in our backyard next year.
Talk about how important fans are to Amalie Arena. You guys are the best in the business at welcoming fans, whether it's at a Lightning game, concerts, no matter what it is. And now you've been walking around here tonight. How exciting is that?
It is exciting. It's all about the guest experience. You step into Amalie Arena, we want you to just be amazed, and you just escape all your troubles and just have a great time. And we want everybody to come to Amalie Arena for the Super Bowl and just get to hopefully meet some of their players, listen to some of their interviews, and just have just an amazing time.
Being in a baseball park, a little different from being in a hockey arena, right? In an arena, what are the little intricacies that are different that you see that may be different than what we're seeing here on opening night?
Well, it feels a little bit wider. I mean, it's definitely wider, so the fans are a little bit farther away here than they will be at Amalie Arena, because everything is going to be close. So just like when you're at a hockey game,
an intimate setting.
Absolutely, but this is a huge park, but so is Amalie Arena is a huge arena. But once you get everybody together, it's going to feel more intimate, and they feel like they're real on top of the players. And what's great too is our scoreboard is in the middle, so no matter where you're going to sit, you're going to be able to sit, so you don't just have to look up at one spot.
We've all been immersing ourselves the last 24 hours in this overall experience. I see you, like the fans, our listeners can't see it, but I'd love for them to hear you talk about what you're wearing right now. What is it that you're wearing?
This is it's an earpiece that they're giving out at the front door, and each of the podiums have a number, and you can click on the whatever the podium's number, and you can listen into the interview. So you can it's like, because I was listening to Patrick Mahomes, I'm like, this is pretty cool, and listen to Andy Reid talk about the team and what he's doing to prepare the team. So it's really interesting to hear a little bit of insight, because it is a real. It's kind of loud with the music and everything, but just put that little earpiece in and just have that little bit of personal connection with your favorite player.
Jason, the fan experience, media night used to be just media and the teams, right? And now it's turned into an overall experience where fans can be a part of this. It's $25 to get in the door here, which seems like a really great deal for fans to be able to take part in this. How has that dynamic added to what is already a special night, being the opening night of Super Bowl?
Well, look, what first started with the draft. The draft expanded into that, so it's just like a natural progression. Get the fans involved. If it wasn't for the fans, it wouldn't be the NFL or any other league. You got to take care of your fans and show them the best experience possible.
A lot of people don't realize this isn't your first rodeo when it comes to these media days. Actually, back at the National Championship 3 years ago, you guys served as the site as really the media day for it. How does that experience play into something like this when it comes to a year from now?
It's definitely going to be a little bit different, but at the same time, we've done it before, so it's not anything truly new, but it is new.
So all week, what are you going to be doing here? I know I like how your credential says future sites, because obviously it's coming to Tampa Bay in 2021. So what will your perspective be throughout the week here as the Super Bowl is in Miami?
It's just looking at all the different aspects and just, okay, how can we fit it into Amalie Arena and everywhere around town to make sure that we have a good experience for all our guests.
Always great hearing the perspective of one of the specialists within our overall area. You know, we've got a variety of these different specialists coming in and out all week. You know, whether it was Jason with Amalie Arena, or we've got folks from the airport coming in, or the convention center to look at their unique perspectives, get a chance to see it a year out so that as we build our overall game plan, we know exactly what we're doing.
And that's what this is all about. That's what this podcast is here for. That's what this YouTube page is here for. It's to give you the perspective from all different types of people that will have their fingerprints on Super Bowl 55 coming to Tampa Bay. We are here on Radio Row. We're going to be here all throughout the rest of the week as we get you set for Super Bowl 54 and all the interesting guests that are going to be passing through our table here at Radio Row. As for you, Rob, because your perspective is going to be different. I'm just happy you're making time for me in your busy schedule this week. Because
Likewise. I saw your autograph signing that you have coming up a little.
Do you want
later.
The headshot too? I've got an extra one for you.
Which night is your big party? Is it Tuesday tonight?
Yeah, the media
Wednesday
party.
Night?
The media party,
Right.
which I'm sure you'll be invited to as well.
I can't believe you guys are getting $1,000 a ticket for the Ryan Bass Super Bowl special party.
It's going towards the bottle service fund towards the end of Super Bowl 54 in Miami. Rob, your perspective today. What's on the agenda for you today, and what can we look forward to for the rest of the week for those listening, as far as what you can offer up from what you're seeing on this podcast?
Yeah, I think the rest of today and the rest of the week is going to be a fast sprint, that's for sure. Some of the things on the docket today is we have one of our local partners, Shriners Hospital for Children, coming in to take a tour of Super Bowl Live with us. We'll get to hear from them a little later on in the week as well. I'm going to head to some of the really, I would say, like ancillary activation. So I'm going to head down to South Beach. They have some corporate activations set up there. I figured I would do that on a day where it was a little more overcast, so I wouldn't be forced to take my shirt off or do any of those things. So I'll take a look from that standpoint. We've got some organizational meetings this afternoon with the NFL. When you start to lay out this overall calendar of production meetings, planning meetings, we're going to do some of that this afternoon to really shape this next year. And then you referenced the media party. One of the responsibilities of the hosts is to also help put on the overall media party to make sure those folks have a great experience. I'm sure Miami is going to put their spin on it tonight. We're going to look to add some touches of Tampa come next year as well as part of it. So we'll be able to check that out as part of tonight's docket.
Well, I'll tell you what, we will report back after tonight's media party, and I'll tell you the good time that I will have, because I'll be done in time to make sure that I partake in what will be a great experience for the media.
We're going to need you to test the drinks. We're going to need you to test the
try.
food and come back with ratings. Give
us
us some suggestions.
Yes.
So to each, we need that perspective.
Some arepas, a little bit of ham croquetas. I got you. Speaking of which, espresso shot for you as we go grab one, so you're ready to go the rest of the day.
Let's do it. I'm naturally shot out of a cannon, but if it makes you feel better, I will have one with you, my friend.
We'll see you guys tomorrow on the pod.